From WHYY and Billy Penn, it is Hittin season. Hey there, podcast pals. I'm John Stolnis from The Good Fight and Billy Penn. You can follow me on X at John Stolnis. Coming up, we're going to talk about the trade deadline. Phillies make a couple of moves here at the trade deadline on Tuesday to go with the other two moves that they made over the weekend. We'll talk about the trades. Maybe give them a grade, but just talk about how they fit into what the Phillies are going to be doing from this point on. Meanwhile, the Phillies are in the middle of their second game of the series against the Yankees, imploding once again. There's still some time for this team to pull out of whatever this rut is that they got going on, but not a good night at the ball yard right now here on this Tuesday night. We'll dip into that just a little bit too. And a couple other things too. What is most worrying is right now about the Phillies. We'll talk about it. We'll hash it out. We'll have some therapy. We'll talk it out right here on this edition of Hittin season. Joining me, Justin Klugh and Liz Roscher. Of course, Justin Klugh from Baseball Prospectus, The Dirty Inning, absolutely hammered. Follow him on Twitter at Justin_Klugh. Justin, how you doing, buddy?
Well, I got to tell you, if you didn't make it out to the Sunday Hittin season tailgate and walk out in the exposed, sweltering heat with the sun just sizzling the meat off your bones, and then go in and watch the Phillies lose an incredibly disappointing 4-3 game, I got to tell you, you didn't miss much.
That's right. That's right. No, it was. We had a very nice time with everybody out there on Sunday afternoon. We missed Liz, of course, Liz Roscher from Yahoo Sports on X at Liz Roscher. We missed you, Liz. We are looking forward to having you at the next one in August, and we'll make an announcement on that coming up in the next week or so. But we do want to talk about the tailgate just for a quick second before we get started. But first, how are you?
I missed all of you very much, wished I was there. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be. But I will say, after watching the game and feeling how hot it was, I did not feel all that bad. I missed all of you terribly, but that game and how warm it was, it made me think, I probably would have been in just the greatest mood in the world.
Yeah, it was a dry heat. It wasn't too humid, so it wasn't awful. And when you got in the shade underneath a tent or something, you were in good shape, drinking water, you were fine. But it was an absolutely brutally hot day there at Citizens Bank Park on Sunday morning. But it was really great to see all you folks who came by the WHYY tent to say hello, share some food, and share some drinks with us. And we wanted to make a specific mention to our little buddy Cal, who stopped by the booth. A very young Phillies fan, stopped by with his dad, it was really, really cool to meet the next generation of Hittin season podcast pals. It was definitely. I mean, this kid loves baseball, Liz. It was really amazing. Like, he's talking about how he's like, kind of like pulling stuff on his dad on like fantasy football. He's in he's talking about like he's in this fantasy football league with his family, and his dad goes in the shower or something. He calls his grandma on the phone, and his dad gets out of the shower. He's like, "What are you calling grandma about?" "No, nothing. Don't worry about it." And then it's like he executes a trade with his grandmother behind his father's back. It was just. That kind of stuff. It was really cool to meet Cal, and it's always great to meet younger listeners of the podcast as well. So Cal, whatever you're doing, keep on doing it, man. It was really great to meet you.
Cal also said that Pete Alonso was overrated when I asked for a hot take. So he was on fire. He was on fire. He kind of ran the show, I would say. It was really Cal's tailgate featuring Hittin season, the podcast.
That's about right.
Man, I wish I could have been there to meet Cal. It sounds like my type of kid. Cal, hopefully I'll meet you next time. If you have a sister, bring her.
Yeah, and Aaron, his dad, was really great he's obviously raising this kid right. I think he said he's been to 8 Phillies games this year. I don't think I've been to 8 Phillies games in the last 20 years of my life. So very, very cool for him to be able to see. He keeps his own score. He's got his own scorebook, like in a plastic case. So yeah, this kid means business, and
love it.
It was a pretty good thing, pretty cool stuff. So anyway, Cal, thanks for coming out. Aaron, thanks for coming out, and thanks to everyone, Billy Penn, the WHYY folks as well, for making it a fun morning on Sunday morning ahead of a game that was not a whole lot of fun. And before we jump into all the trade deadline stuff, we should talk about the state of the Phillies right now as the trade deadline has passed, and we'll just recap what the Phillies have done here in the trade deadline as a way to kind of talk about like where the team stands at the moment. We already know that the Phillies traded for Austin Hayes. We've talked about that on the podcast. They got Carlos Estevez from the Angels to be their new ninth inning closer. And on Tuesday here, just before the trade deadline expired, the Phillies went out and got a left-handed specialist, Tanner Banks, from the White Sox. They also got a right-handed starting pitcher who's a prospect who's going to start in Double-A by the name of Seth Johnson from the Orioles. Another right-handed pitcher named Moises Chase from the Orioles. The Orioles got Gregory Soto from the Phillies in exchange for this Seth Johnson kid. So at the end of the day, the Phillies go out, Justin, and they get a left fielder in Austin Hayes, who's had a big night here on Tuesday night, to be their everyday left fielder. They go out and they get a true closer, a guy who's a definite upgrade from Sir Anthony Dominguez. And I think they definitely get an upgrade with Tanner Banks over Gregory Soto, because nobody trusted Gregory Soto any further than they could throw him. So you got these three additions. I guess at the end of the day, I feel like it's kind of like a B- type trade deadline. They didn't go all in. They didn't push any of their they didn't lose any of their top 4 or 6 prospects. Maybe George Clausen is probably number 5 or whatever. But at the end of the day, they held on to the top guys, and they seem to fill some areas of needs. And they're better. I think they're better today than they were before the start of the trade deadline. Although I don't know. Maybe I guess there wasn't more they could do. But Justin, what were your thoughts on the overall haul the Phillies got over these last few days?
I'm honestly more of a C+. I think the plus happened today with the additional smaller trades they made. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying not to let the immediate return factor into this because nobody's really hitting for the Phillies right now. But watching, Austin Hayes hit a home run to left field, like we were told he was going to do 1,000,000 times without the Camden Yards fence issue for him. Seeing him do that tonight and make a nice catch tonight, that was great. Of course, then the bullpen blew up the lead, so now it's back to just being like, well, now I'm mad again. So, I mean, I think there's a chance Hayes can be the guy they want him to be. I think that part of the problem he had in Baltimore was the overexposure that he got from Brandon Hyde, and the Phillies, turns out, want to use him the same way and have him be the starting left fielder and platoon Marsh and Rojas in center field. So I don't know how on board with that plan I am, and Estevez is a great return, but he is a guy that coming into this season had a very, Gregory Soto, Jose Alvarado-esque reputation in the broadest sense of here's a guy that, pitched really well in the first half, then don't look at his splits in the second half last year. This is a guy who became unreliable at times, and you were never quite sure what you were going to get. This year, things have been looking good. He had that incredible number of 53 of his last 58 batters had been retired or something. He was just not allowing a ton of base runners, and he was getting the job done. Here we are in the second half. Hopefully this works. Hopefully he's the right guy to bring in here. And then Tanner Banks taking Gregory Soto's job. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of experience, but I guess Dave Dombrowski sees something in this arm that that we're not privy to just yet, because this is not a guy a lot of people were familiar with. So I don't know. I'm pretty underwhelmed, and I know that they were prioritizing vibes, so you get the implication there that perhaps there were trades on the table for guys that they could have traded logistically but didn't want to trade emotionally. And you get that because that's something that's been cited as a baseline strength for this team the past 3 years. So I don't know. I'm more just underwhelmed. Just kind of feeling like this team's in a pretty big hole right now. And every night like this, every loss they lose, every time it looks like, boy, there's not really a strength they can rely on right now. It just feels like I don't know what they could have done at the trade deadline, but their problems seem to be more in-house than about who they were going to bring in here in late July.
Right, and Liz, the argument's been made that the core that's here, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, the starting pitching, the guys like Matt Strahm, the offense loaded with the offense is completely and totally healthy. Everyone is in the lineup that is supposed to be in the lineup. There are no injuries right now outside of Ranger Suarez that the Phillies are dealing with at the moment, and yet they're playing their worst baseball of the season. So I mean, with getting Tanner Banks, I mean he's the overall numbers don't look so great. A 4.13 ERA, but against lefties are hitting just 184 off him this year. Righties are hitting 308. So he's been very good against left-handers, and again, I think that's what they're really going to be honing in on with him. So I get it. It makes sense, but the Padres, they went out and they got Tanner Scott, but they gave up the moon for Tanner Scott. And so you wonder, did Dave Dombrowski do the wiser thing by going out and getting a guy who, by the numbers, has been very effective against left-handers, by going out and getting a closer that they got that was cheaper than Tanner Scott? Estevez cost far less than Tanner Scott cost, and by going out and getting a left fielder in Austin Hayes, when really there are not a lot of impact bats that were traded at this deadline anyway. It didn't seem like any impact bats were really available. Luis Robert Jr. stays in Chicago. I don't know, what was your take on how this trade deadline all shook out?
I mean, I think with the market being the way it is and the Phillies being the way they are, there's no way that Dombrowski could have whelmed or overwhelmed anybody. I don't think there is a way to do it. And I wasn't expecting much because Dombrowski has not wanted to give up big prospects. And looking at the prices, they were insane. I mean, I think Dombrowski did as good as he could, but I don't think anyone was going to think anything positive about the acquisitions unless the Phillies started immediately doing better. And with the players they got, that just wasn't going to happen. I always talk a lot about, there are areas of the game where the team is doing well in, and when the team is doing well hitting, the bullpen, the pitching they can make a few more mistakes because the hitting's there to pick them up. And the reverse happens with, when the offense is bad, the pitching can pick them up and all of that. And earlier in the season, I thought to myself, it's really great when the Phillies are running on all cylinders. And a tiny voice in the back of my head said, what happens when they're not? Because if everything's running together, I always feel like there's a greater chance of the universe that everything's going to stop at the same time, and the Phillies are going to look as bad as they have since the beginning of the season. And it was just predictable to me that this was going to happen after the All-Star break. Everyone got together, or, the All-Star guys got together, shared some good vibes, then they all went home. I feel like if you asked them, would you like to actually have the All-Star break, or do you want to keep playing through and keep this going? They all would have said, let's just not stop. If we all separate, we all have to build everything back up again. I'm confident it will happen. I just don't think the acquisitions that were made, is really going to push them over any type of line. Though we all, of course, imagine what they could do to the Phillies if it's not good things. But we could leave that until another time when they actually do bad things.
Well, a couple of things you said there were really prescient, and I think the first one was they were picking each other up a lot early in the season. Like if the pitching would falter, but the hitting would pick them up. And right now, it's not just that these guys aren't picking each other up when something bad happens. They're kind of letting each other down at the moment. You get a 4-1 lead, and the offense isn't building on it, and that's been par for the course. They've scored some runs early in some games and then just stalled out, and teams have managed to scratch and claw their way back like the Yankees have done here so far on Tuesday. We're recording as this is now in the 8th inning, and the Phillies are down 5-4 after blowing a 4-1 lead. It's just that, and that's been the song. This would be the 4th 3-run lead this team has blown in a game, if they had gone to lose this game, it'd be the 4th time they've lost a game in which they had a 3-run lead here in the second half of the season. And I thought one of the other interesting things was that Nick Castellanos and a couple of the other players were talking to the Phillies beat reporters, talking about how after the Dodgers series, there just seemed to be a drop in the energy. There seemed to be a letdown by the team collectively. After the first loss to the A's, I think they were all saying that game felt weird, didn't it? Didn't that game feel weird? It seems as though maybe it's playing all these American League teams that they don't have a history with. Maybe it's going to different places that they haven't been to. But, you got the Guardians and Yankees coming to Citizens Bank Park, the two best teams in the American League. You would expect there to be some juice. And right now, it seems like with the way the things are going with this team, when something bad happens, no one is able to kind of course correct, and they're just waiting for the next bad thing to happen. Bryce Harper, Trey Turner are in a horrific slump right now. The entire lineup isn't hitting. No one is picking each other up in this lineup right now, and the bullpen, which had been so dominant for most of the season, is simply not getting the job done. Matt Strom just had a blow up inning. I mean, we have not been able to say that about him all year, but it's snowballing. You're in one of those situations where all these bad things are snowballing. So you're right. These trade deadline acquisitions, they're not going to stop any of that kind of stuff. I think they're good additions. I think the Phillies will pull out of this at some point. I think it's going to probably happen sooner rather than later, but it hasn't happened yet, and they're about to embark on a long West Coast trip against some very good teams as well. There's real concern, Liz, that this thing is falling apart, and I don't want to go there because I don't think that's going to happen with this team. But when you look at the schedule, you look at how they're playing right now, it's a scary time right now. I don't think it's time to panic, but it's scary right now.
People are going to panic. I've heard my beloved husband say at the end of pretty much every game we've watched since the All-Star break, well, season's over. He doesn't mean it, especially after I say, hey, don't say
right.
that. I hate it. One thing you mentioned that no one's picking each other up. The first thing that popped into my mind, have you ever seen the Twilight Zone episode, 5 Characters in Search of an Exit?
I haven't.
It's a real abstract episode. It's like 5 children's toys in the bottom of a big hole, and all they see is a light at the top, and they have no idea how to get out. Now, the end of the story is they're all actually dolls, and they're fake, and they're inside of a toy box, I think, or something like that. But like I just remember them wandering around and arguing with each other, trying to figure out how to get out. And all they had to do was just sort of sit and rest, and it all would have figured itself out. Every Twilight Zone episode ends, whether it's good or not. At least this one ended with people getting out of the thing. And I just can't stop thinking about that because it feels like they're all just sort of tumbling over each other, trying to figure out how to get out of the slump that they're in. And the harder we've said this in the past, we've seen it in previous years. The harder they try, the worse it gets. And I think they're just like, no, we're being cool, right? Everyone's cool. Everyone's fine. Don't try too hard. But everyone is pressing and everyone's trying hard because everyone feels like they need to be the one to fix it. I just think they need to relax. They need 2 wins in a row. That's all they need. They just need a couple wins in a row. And I think they'll be able to remember how all this feels because they haven't won 2 games in a row in a while, have they? I think they've only done it.
The Dodgers. The Dodgers series was the last time they've won 2 in a row.
Yep. And I think once they do that and they feel like, all right, we won 1 game and then we won the next one. We can build on this. Everyone get on everyone else's shoulders and we'll get out of the weird toy box hole.
First of all, if anybody thinks that they were the only one saying that the other shoe was going to drop, may I introduce you to all of Philly's Twitter for the entire first
is that
half
what you were looking up just now?
That notion was everywhere.
It was.
As was the notion to fire Rob Thompson, which was very much alive today. Fire Thompson and Dombrowski today. At least Kevin Long was safe this time. But yeah.
So the idiots are out in full force.
Caleb Cottom has been getting a free ride in this town. All
That's
right,
true.
Enough. Get him out of here too.
It's about accountability,
Yeah,
It's
really.
about holding people responsible. And I forget why, but most of this is his fault. Jazz Chisholm, that's on Caleb Cottom tonight.
Oh yeah.
I was looking at
he should be poking
some
everyone with
July
sticks
18th.
at all times.
Since July 18th, Trey Turner and Bryce Harper are both hitting under 200, well under 200, with a handful of hits. Trey Turner's got 12 strikeouts and 42 at-bats. I mean, this is all just confirming what you already know. And, the Phillies weren't going to get those 2 guys back based on who they acquired at the trade deadline. It really does just come down to that. But when you say, well, there's nothing really to do except hope they start playing better. But you really are. That's kind of what you're limited to. But people want to see plans start to work. People want to see what the Phillies are acquiring these guys for, come to fruition. And Austin Hayes has been here a couple of days, and he hit one out today, and that's good progress. And you really hope this is an isolated incident. But these are 4 really ugly series losses. What you're not worried about is the outcome of a single game. You're worried about what it means for future games, and what does this mean in the long term. And the Phillies can't get Aaron Judge out. That's something that they just did, but typically, for the most part, they can't get Aaron Judge out. They are struggling against teams that are better than the soft teams they played earlier. That doesn't mean they can only beat soft teams. They still have the second best record against teams with a 500 or better record in baseball, and they swept the Dodgers, before the All-Star break. So you can't really say that, but it starts to feel truer when they can't slap 2 runs together. I mean, they're getting shelled. They're losing by a run. They're not winning because their offense isn't coming through. They're
losing every way you can lose. Every way you can lose, they're losing.
Everybody comes out to be a stopper, and then they blow. They give up 3 runs in the first inning, and the Phillies are in a hole already. There's no strength to this team right now. They come out there looking like they're getting ready to lose. They squeeze out a couple of runs in the second or third inning, and then they just kind of take the rest of the game off, and it's infuriating. It's infuriating to watch. It's very frustrating. So you want to see immediate impact from whatever changes they make. That's kind of just the fan mentality at the All-Star break. But the reality of the situation is, without guys like Turner and Harper in your lineup, but taking up space in your lineup, you're not really going to get anywhere. So, I did look it up. I looked up the Phillies' last couple of losing streaks in 2022 and 2023. They lost 7 in a row in 22, and they lost 5 in a row 3 different times in 2023. And I will say that, as sad as it is that with every bullpen meltdown, it seems like it's a different pitcher getting blown up, which is, even worse. It feels like any starter can get hit hard now, and any batter can go cold. I will say that Nick Castellanos since July 18th has been hitting .316, and over half of his hits have been for extra bases. So that's just, of course, he is excelling as the team is faltering.
As the rest, nobody else is hitting. That's when he hits.
But also, when the Phillies pulled out of these tailspins, it was typically a different person every time. Bryce Harper got hot in 22, JT Realmuto got hot, Bryson Stott got hot, Kyle Schwarber got hot. 1 or 2 guys got hot, and they kind of raised all boats with their success. And it was a different person every time. So when you talk about guys picking each other up, this team is capable of, when they've been in this situation before, it's been somebody's just figured it out, and it's been good for everybody. The problem is just waiting for that. I do think signs of Kyle Schwarber homering. He's usually one of when his giant cog part of the machine starts creaking again, it starts getting the rest of the offense going. So you hope you see more of that. But all we can do is sit here and watch this, and you never feel as helpless as when that happens. You're just
it's a helpless feeling. It really is.
I want the opposite, and if I see him ground out in a key spot one more time, it's just going to feel like they're doing it on purpose, and then you just get into a whole bad mindset, and it's a terrible place to be. So I've said this a couple of times at different summers in the past. This may be the best time, Phillies fans, to find one of those other summer activities you like, just for 2 weeks.
That's what I've been doing.
Just check out for 2 weeks, come back. Things will probably have restabilized, at least to a point. Maybe they've won a couple of games in a row. But, for now, if this is getting to be too much, I totally understand. I can't look away. That's just not something I'm capable of at this point.
Right.
But if you have the option to, just go to the beach or go golfing or, water balloon fight, these classic summer activities.
Summer activities,
Engage in some of that right now instead. Read a book under a tree with a bird on your shoulder. These are gentler, healing acts that can prepare you for the actual home stretch for the Phillies, which is just going to be a real shred.
Yeah, and I keep going back to the fact that, and I don't know whether to take comfort in this or whether to be worried about this, and I think most Phillies Twitter people are worried about it, but they've done this before. Last year, the year before, they have these long extended slumps by the offense where they just disappear, and then out of nowhere it reappears again. And last August, the team went crazy offensively. I mean, they couldn't stop scoring runs, but they also encountered a softer part of their schedule. And that's the thing is I don't want to make too big a thing out of the schedule. I didn't make too big a thing out of it early when they played a lot of easy teams, and now that they're playing a lot of challenging teams, the Phillies are a good team. They should be doing better than they are against these other good teams, especially here at Citizens Bank Park. But right now, They're not. Nothing is going their way. I mean, there's some bad luck thrown into the mix here as well. But this team is really just playing poorly. And I don't know if maybe now that the trade deadline is passed, and that maybe that can kind of start to get things moving in the right direction. But I think in general, I don't know what is the worry is that that this can happen at any time, right? They're rolling right along. They're playing great baseball. They look like they're unstoppable, and then all of a sudden it kind of falls apart. Like they hit a losing streak. And it's hard to remember that there are other teams, the other good teams in the National League, have gone or are going through the exact same thing. Like the Dodgers were under 500 in July until I think yesterday. Same thing with the Brewers. Same thing with the Braves. Same thing with the and with the Phillies, and the Yankees have had even before these first couple of games, they've been in a real bad place in July.
The Mets.
Not the Mets. No, the Mets are one of the few teams in the National League that have been doing really well this month. But, we don't get to look outside of ourselves and see the struggles of the rest of the teams in the National League. It's just we watched this Phillies team and we thought, man, they could really be on cruise control right now. You win just a few more games, you're 12 games up all of a sudden. And they're just not. They're not. And the worry is that this is going to happen again in October at the wrong time, and it's going to be like we're running headfirst into a brick wall again. And so that's why Dave Dombrowski's got to go out and he's got to make a bigger move. He's got to make a big splash. He's got to go out and get somebody. And watching Jazz Chisholm play here against the Yankees, they ruled him out pretty quickly, a week or two ago. And
this is what I mean by I'm trying not to let these immediate returns factor into my overall reaction to this deadline. Because like you said, he was one of the first names off the board for the Phillies, and now he's hit 2 home runs against them tonight.
Hey, I'll say though, Carlos Estevez came in and got 3 outs, and they were all caught by Brandon Marsh. So that, I was
good
watching
through strikes,
the game
throwing
day
hard.
very closely on my phone, throwing hard,
nice.
throwing
Can
strikes. He actually,
well, that was part of the thing.
He got Aaron Judge to fly out. He's the one that got Aaron Judge out tonight, and he got Jazz Chisholm out. So
I think one of the disheartening things is that this team's down 1 run in the 9th, and it feels like they have no chance to scratch out a run here.
There's not a shot. No.
That they don't have. I mean, and part of that is the problem with the way the team is constructed is they're not able to scratch out a run. Like they're only scoring with home runs right now. They can't find a way to get on, steal a bag, move them over. That's just not. And most teams don't have that ability right now. But it's just that this team has to get 2 doubles to score a run right now, or hit one out. And it shouldn't be that hard at Citizens Bank Park. But it's what worries you the most about the Phillies right now, Liz? Is it the starting pitching? I wouldn't think that it is. The starting pitching has largely been okay, but Nola wasn't great here on Tuesday night, but he was okay. Zach Wheeler got bombed. You don't have Ranger Suarez right now. So is it the starting pitching? Is it the bullpen meltdowns that we've seen here over the last couple of weeks? Is it the offense? Or is it, we mentioned Rob Thompson, people wanting him fired or whatever. I don't think I've seen much from Rob Thompson that I would quibble with, but what to you is most worrisome about the Phillies here for the rest of the way?
Well, I think I'm probably more concerned with pitching overall. There are 9 guys on offense, and they all play every day, pretty much. And while it looks bleak now, they'll hit their way out of it. They will. They're all professionals, and they'll figure it out. The pitchers, it feels they pitch every 5th day, the starter pitchers at least, and that is a much longer time for them to sort of. It's not like, back at it tomorrow. It's, I get to think about this for the next 4 days until I go back out again. And the bullpen is frustrating, though that is, in a way, sort of like, the offense. You can mix them, you can switch them, and some of them do play more often. Like, bullpen guys have to have the memory of a goldfish. Like, they have to. They cannot remember what happened yesterday. So I'm more concerned with that. Oh. I'm trying to watch the game, and it's all
what about you, Justin?
Me.
Yeah.
First of all, I hope I try to figure out what people mean when they say you got to fire Rob Thompson, because that can't be what you mean. Because for a team that was like prioritizing its in-house culture at the trade deadline, there's not a worse thing you could do than yank the manager they've been playing for 3 years out.
Right. No, it's not a serious request.
Right. Like, it's not made by serious people. It's just not a thing. So that's kind of funny. I will say the hitting, because we can say, oh, you got to just wait for them to figure it out, but it's the waiting that's it feels hopeless. It feels like they just don't get it back. It feels like one run is too much, and you can get the best start of a guy's life, but if the hitting's not there, then they're going to end up losing that game. And that's kind of the Phillies' energy right now, is that they're not concerned. They're like, oh, earlier it's like, oh, we hate to lose. Oh, we just hate it so much. You could have fooled me. It could have seemed like it's their biggest passion in life, the way they've been losing games and the variety with which they've been losing games. So when it comes to the offense, I know these things are just, it's like watching a knot untie itself. But again, that can take a long time, especially since it's impossible. So, So again, it's the feeling. It's like, one day they just beat a team 8-0 not that long ago, but that was their one win of the series. So like clearly it's in there. You're just waiting. It's one of those moments that you look back on, like, oh, what if they walk it off tonight? You're already thinking, if they walk it off tonight, well, maybe that's the victory that turns. Maybe that's the juice they need to really turn things around. And the offense is going to have to do that. Like, the offense is going to have to carry that. So
get a big hit. Get a big hit.
I mean. Yeah. Like right now, it's more just like, boy, Zach Wheeler can give up 4 runs in 6 innings and like some painfully average start if the offense knocks in 7 runs, like they're totally capable of doing. Like they were, around averaging earlier this season. So that's the more frustrating aspect for me.
I am most worried about the offense, and I there was really, Jazz Chisholm is obviously not going to do this all year. I mean, he's had a tremendous first 2 games of the series, but there hasn't been any big slugger that was available at the trade deadline. It doesn't sound like Brent Rooker didn't go anywhere. There was really
Brent Rooker didn't go anywhere. Wow.
Yeah,
that is
after all that.
What a boring end to that subplot.
Yeah.
Same with Robert, honestly.
The A's are charging an enormous amount of prospects. They wanted so much because I guess they just didn't want to get rid of them. Like, if only the Blue Jays could have had that attitude when they made a deal with the Astros for what's-his-face. You say Kikuchi.
You say Kikuchi.
Which is really my least favorite move of the entire thing. Like, who are you?
Did we really?
How dare you make a deal with the Astros? I was so angry about
when
that.
I saw that deal pop up. How dare you? That was my feelings exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad I wasn't alone, because I'm like, is this a feeling I should share? Because it seems wrong, but also, don't you dare do that again.
Yeah. That was the most how dare you trade of the day. I felt the what is this trade of the day was the Tigers sending Mark Canha to the Giants. Which was
after the Giants were selling guys all day.
It was just a stupid little bonus addendum at the end of the trade deadline.
Well, and we're going to hold on to Blake Snell just in case we want to make a push. I'm like, no, you don't. You're the Giants. What are you talking about?
I think I saw that. I think I saw the Marlins in this trade deadline traded away like 9 players off their active roster, like a third of their team or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
And when
they're not even a baseball team.
Most.
No.
And when
they're not a baseball team anymore.
When the Twins traded for Trevor Richards of the Blue Jays, it completed the cycle so that all 30 teams had made at least one deal at the trade deadline. So that's the kind of – we didn't really talk about the nature of the trade deadline itself. Today, absolutely no big names got moved. It was very much a ton of activity, but like lots of just some guys, lots of just like impact guys, lots of guys that – it was like a lot of GMs and presidents of baseball operations saying like, oh, yeah, I have a feeling, or like, I like this guy, or our coaches like this guy. Like, it was like a lot of that, honestly. It was less about, like, who's this giant star we can get to fill in this gap. So I think you saw a lot more craftiness and backroom strategy in this trade deadline, which, I got to be honest, didn't make it super entertaining, but there was something new it felt like every couple of minutes today, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, there was a flurry. It was a flurry of activity, but not necessarily impact players being moved. I think Tanner Scott was probably the biggest name that went here on Tuesday that I can think of, and he went for a tremendous number of high impact prospects. I would not have felt comfortable giving up that much for Tanner Scott, and I really wanted the Phillies to go out and pick him up. So I think the Phillies did fine with what they did here, and that's why we haven't been talking a lot about the trades that the Phillies made, because really they should help the Phillies in these niche areas. The Phillies were the worst team in the league in terms of outfielders hitting left-handed pitching. Like it's been an abomination. Yeah. Austin Hayes should help with that. Now, I don't know that he should be playing every day. The idea was getting a player of that caliber would be a platoon guy with Brandon Marsh in left field. But now, we've been wanting Brandon Marsh to be an everyday player. It looks like he's going to be an everyday player from here on out. And with Johan Rojas now in the Christian Pache role. So, we got to give that a little bit more time, but there just wasn't an impact bat for the Phillies to go out and get here. Luis Robert Jr. didn't get moved. We don't know what the White Sox were asking for Luis Robert Jr. And by the way, he has been terrible over the last couple of months. He's been really kind of brutal. Oh my gosh, did the Phillies just tie it?
Come on.
They just tied it up on a wild pitch. Oh, my goodness.
Field, yes.
Oh, my gosh. On a wild pitch, Johan Rojas just barely snuck in there. Holy cow.
Watch this on video. I'm going to have to watch this because my body tensed up like I was struck by lightning.
I know. Me too. Me too. So, fans, you're going to be along with us for the ride here in the ninth inning. Maybe that's the spark the Phillies need. Sometimes you need a gift, right? Sometimes it's okay if the other team just makes it a little easy for you, like gives you that little opening. And that hasn't been happening for the Phillies, during this losing
what a great
streak.
Slide.
It was a great slide by Rojas.
Tremendous slide by Johan Rojas.
Okay, for the Fire Rob Thompson people, Rob Thompson brings in Johan Rojas to pinch run for Nick Castellanos after Castellanos was safe on a fielder's choice. Okay, That's why, that's a good managerial move right there. That's good thinking. Rob Thompson's a good manager, so that that move right there earned the Phillies that run, because if that's Nick Castellanos, they don't even try it.
Not even close, yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. That's Castellanos can do that. He just does it a completely different way,
slower.
Yeah. Just taunting you, tempting you. There's a lot of more mind games that go into it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Intentionally walked Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah. So now you got Trey.
Right.
Now you got Trey.
They threw him two pitches, and they were like, nah.
Then they're like, nah, that's good.
And now you got a guy hitting 167 since July 18th.
Yeah, Trey has just been brutal, man. You can almost feel the first pitch slider ground out to shortstop here.
And he's going to swing.
And he swung.
And he swung. Thank you.
He had a pitch there. It was a breaking ball, but it was over the middle of the plate.
When Bryson Stott came up, I think earlier in this inning, the first pitch was way down in the zone, and he's swinging right away. He's just like, wow. And then the next pitch was, I think, probably around where he could have hit it, and he's just like, why don't I watch that one go right by? He is lost.
You should have seen that JT Real Muto at bat from last inning, where he took two strikes and then swung at a pitch that was maybe going to hit that Chevy sign behind him.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well,
he was 2 for 4 tonight.
Trey loves to swing.
Trey Turner just so undisciplined. That ball's not a strikeout of the pitcher's hand there to get it to 1-2. It's never a strike.
This is it, though. This is what we're talking about. He's got to come through here, and that has to be the difference between now and when the Phillies are good again, is him coming through in this moment.
This is why we signed him.
Yeah. And there's a dribbler to third base. Will he beat it out? He beat it out.
Safe for now. So for now,
Infield
he
single.
has done that. Oh, great. Perfect. Another situation where the Phillies just need a run and they load the base. They fill every possible base. They touch every base except the one they need to touch. They do this all the time.
Well, now here's the hero moment for Bryce. Bryce Harper has been ice cold. Bryce Harper, after the game on Sunday, said the Stars need to step up. Right? He loves these moments. You're right, Liz.
This is his moment.
Yep. There's few people that I would say are supposed to be in this moment. He prefers this. He would prefer just to come up. If he was leading off a game, he would be like, no, can there be the bases loaded and the whole game on the line?
Prediction, what happens here? What does Bryce do?
I love him for it.
It's tough to pull against them right now.
Yeah.
I'm saying line drive off the wall.
Was strikeout.
I'm saying fly out. I'm
faithless.
Well, I'm glad I said what I said because one of us has to have a positive outcome here.
You're right.
One of us will be right, even if we're
Austin
very.
Hayes, just envision in your head Austin Hayes coming home.
Give me a slam. Give me a slam here. Give me a slam.
Come on.
He holds off the Ryan Howard special that hit him in the back foot.
That's right.
Good.
That's right. Yep. 1-1 count.
He's in the right headspace. Look at those wheels turning.
I don't know if this is entertaining for the podcast listeners, but
I don't care.
This is definitely entertaining for
us.
This is
all
his
going,
content.
So he's
ball two.
Yeah, I mean, we can try to talk about something right now.
No, none of us are going to be listening to each other at this point. I mean, this is the
danger
of recording at 9 p.m.
Well, and the last time we did this, the listeners kind of loved it. So if you don't like it, sorry.
Yeah.
Other people really enjoyed it.
Oh, he had a hanger. Oh, Bryce, he had a hanger, 88 mile an hour, and he fouled it off.
And he didn't swing either of those pitches in the dirt, which seemed like progress to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's a hanger. And that has happened so much to him these last few games. Fastballs right down the middle,
just
and he's fouled
too far
them off.
Inside, I think.
Gotta come through.
Does he chase here? Oh, my goodness. Oh, no.
Nope.
Unbelievable. Harper hit a rocket. It bounced off the first baseman's glove. It deflected right to the second baseman, and the pitcher was covering. Unbelievable.
Right. What do you guys want to talk about now?
Death.
Oh, my gosh.
We could talk about the Gregory Soto trade, I guess.
Oh, man. Well, they tied it up. I mean, listen, it's a little bit of fight there. Okay, the inning starts off with a JT Realmuto infield dribbler. The Phillies got, for the first time in 2 weeks, a little bit of luck there in that ninth inning. So now
they have the advantage being the home team in extra innings too.
You would think
they get 3 outs and then they get a free runner in scoring position. So
yeah. And I think they're going to bring in Jeff Hoffman here in the 10th. So
I'm bringing in Jeff Hoffman, and I mean I'm not saying if I was them. I'm saying I'm personally bringing in Jeff Hoffman right now because I don't think I don't think I can take anybody else coming into this game right now.
In about 3 minutes, Justin is going to teleport.
Maybe we should wrap this up.
So you will see him in the bullpen, pushing him out.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up so that we can watch this 10th inning without boring the listeners. We've run through the trade deadline. It was an uneventful trade deadline. The Phillies made some small improvements, but obviously the big improvements are going to have to be from the guys who got here, and that's the story of the trade deadline here in 2024. So
we learned a little something about life, about love, and you know what? About ourselves. How about that?
I feel like I've grown as a person and a podcaster today.
I think the real trade deadline was the trades the Phillies didn't make along the way.
That's
They're
right.
Real friends.
That's right. Real quick, final thoughts from anybody? Liz, final thoughts?
I got something. I think some people or many people remember during Pride Month, Phillies former Angels guy Austin Hayes made a tweet that was real unpleasant to the LGBTQ plus community. At Canonical Chris on Twitter is donating to one of Philly's LGBTQ charities whenever Austin Hayes hit a homer. He hit one tonight, and this guy is donating $20.91 to cover the credit card charge. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to donate $20 to a LGBTQIA plus charity in the Philly area every time that happens. I invite all of you to join me. No pressure, but Austin Hayes sucks as a person. So I think I'm going to do that because it feels right. It's been a while since the Phillies have had a guy that I really genuinely dislike for those reasons and who's been really vocal about it. So I'm going to do that. It will make me feel better about watching him do good things.
Okay. Totally hear you there. Justin, what about you? Final thoughts?
Great catch by Braden Marsh there.
Yep. The runner going to tag.
Into foul territory.
The runner's tagging the third, though.
We didn't get to talk about it, but Ranger Suarez to the 15-day injured list with back soreness. I mean, by the time we're hearing about injuries, we're usually hearing about what they just want to tell us. That means a lot of broad terms like elbow stiffness or back stiffness. I like in hockey when they just say lower body injury. And you're like,
right.
I don't know what happened.
Question mark?
But these teams are broad.
How
when
low
you
are we
lift them
talking?
up, you see a writhing, swarming mess underneath that could be the underlying cause of those things. But for back soreness, you never know. My point is rather like with other factors like how Suarez has been pitching through discomfort already this season, how he was uncomfortable enough to miss his first All-Star game. Despite 2 weeks of rest, he still isn't all the way through it. The rash of missed time for starting pitchers across baseball at this point in the season. I have a bad feeling. I hope it's nothing. I'm not an expert. I'm just talking about feelings, and more I'm just saying it's a real shame that he's in this spot. A, because the Phillies could really use his contribution because he's had such an incredible season. And it's just a real shame that he missed out on the opportunity to pitch in the All-Star game and that the second half is starting off like this for him because things were going really well for him for a while. So hope it's a quick road back for Ranger. You hate to see it. And, here's hoping that whatever he's still trying to work through gets worked through.
Yeah, I share your nervousness about his injury. I mean, he's basically going to have a month off. And unfortunately, this, when you're talking about a contract extension for Ranger Suarez and stuff, you have to factor in he misses about a month of every season, it seems, that he's been in the starting rotation as a member of the Phillies. So it's certainly something to be concerned about and to think about. But hopefully, again, you're right, he comes back and he's back in the rotation and pitching like he was in the first couple months of the season because he was the Cy Young frontrunner for a while there. All right, everybody, look, that's going to do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. Fingers crossed the Phillies pull this one out against the Yankees here on this Tuesday night as we are finishing up our recording. I want to encourage you all to check out billypenn.com/hittin' season. I'll have a blog post up there at some point on Wednesday talking about I don't know. I'll think of something. I'm not sure what it's going to be about yet, but make sure you check that out. Also, stuff at The Good Fight. Make sure you're reading everything Liz is doing. A lot of Olympics coverage for Liz over at Yahoo Sports. That's sports.yahoo.com. And then all of Justin's stuff at Baseball Prospectus as well. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We will talk to you next time right here on Hittin' Season.